Red Dead Redemption was a video game originally released for the Xbox 360 and PS3 consoles on May 18, 2010, developed by Rockstar Games. Taking place around the year 1911, you play as John Marston in the fictional North American region of New Austin. Just as it was in our own history, 1911 was the end of the wild frontier era in the West. Styled after the many Western books and movies written since, John and the fictional New Austin are everything you would expect to see in a Wild West video game. You can bounty hunt, play cards, play dice, herd cattle, go hunting, pick flowers, have shootouts with robbers and rustlers, ride horses, steal horses, lasso horses and break them, lasso people and break them, ride the rails. Red Dead Redemption has an absolutely insane amount of things to do and details to notice, even compared to modern games. I want to take a look at what made Red Dead Redemption into the franchise it is today, why it seems to be so beloved, and the story it tells under the surface. Red Dead Redemption is often remembered for its open world, gunfights, and Western atmosphere, but beneath the horses and six-shooters is a far more uncomfortable story. Through John Marston's attempts to leave violence behind, I think Red Dead Redemption argues that redemption is not rewarded by governments or institutions, only tolerated until it becomes inconvenient. In a world obsessed with order and progress, doing the right thing is not enough to survive, and sometimes the only redemption left is choosing who gets spared. I spent a lot of time as a teen and some later in my life enjoying RDR on the Xbox 360. So when Red Dead Redemption was ported and upscaled for the PS5, I figured this would be a great time to go back and claim myself another Platinum trophy. After all, I recently did the same for the remaster Elder Scrolls Oblivion. Also, the game's prequel Red Dead Redemption 2 is considered by me and many other people to be one of the greatest, most immersive video games ever made. RDR2 was the reason I bought a newer laptop during the pandemic so I could see the origins of John Marston and experience something closer to the golden age of cowboys and outlaws. I have over 311 hours played in Red Dead Redemption 2. I couldn't wait to relive the story of the original RDR with a more matured and methodical mindset, while also knowing more about John and the gang. In reflection, I did have some buggy and jittery animations, but the game played well, while of course also having a fair amount of visual improvements over its Xbox 360 predecessor. In my time with these games recently, I immensely enjoyed the story and lessons presented for the media-savvy player. While the games can be played straight-faced and still enjoyed as a simulation or shooting game, the meta-story presents some interesting questions about life, faith, the government, and of course, redemption. Act 1. In the beginning of the game, you watch John Marston riding a ferry into the region. Upon arriving, John is greeted by two agents of the federal government. The Pinkertons have seized his wife and son in order to strong-arm him into hunting down and apprehending the remaining members of his old gang. It is made apparent that John has given up on his life as an outlaw some time ago, exchanging it for a quiet life ranching in the countryside. His motivation and demeanor is made apparent immediately. John is an archetype on many classic gunslingers. He's a gruff, no-nonsense hired gun with a past. He's trying to turn over a new leaf, but his previous life of crime has caught up to him, and now he must pay a price. His character is heavily inspired by Clint Eastwood's iconic roles, and his story is reminiscent of Deke Thornton's arc in The Wild Bunch. After a brief greeting from a local, John Solo approaches the gang hideout of Fort Mercer and attempts to call out his old friend with a plea to reason. Being a man of violence and action, Bill declines and requests,
"I implores you to go back and tell them to send someone just a little bit more impressive next time."
Before shooting John and leaving him for dead outside the fort. John is saved by Bonnie McFarlane, who gets him patched up and brings him back to her family ranch to recover. John, feeling somewhat indebted to the McFarlanes, helps the family with some tasks around the ranch. These tasks include things like herding cattle, breaking horses, escorting Bonnie to town, and even saving horses from a burning barn. These activities are probably more in line with the type of life and work John wants. Bonnie McFarlane and her farm are a sort of idealized example of what luck and hard work could afford you on the frontier. A real The Waltons vibe, if you know what I mean. Making his way back to Armadillo, John makes contact with the local law enforcement. We meet a fan-favorite side character, Lee Johnson, the marshal. John explains the situation and flashes some documentation. John is obviously not keen on getting lit up by Bill again, but the marshal isn't too keen on an unknown Fed boy coming in making big asks. These two come to an agreement. The marshal agrees for him and his men to assist with the assault on Fort Mercer, while John will assist the sheriffs with dispatching their local bandits and assemble the team. After cleaning up the country of Cholla Springs and clearing out his first gang hideout, it's time to meet some new side characters. John meets Nigel West Dickens. Mr. Dickens is a literal snake oil salesman who he begrudgingly assists in various schemes and hustles in the region, usually involving being part of a ruse or cleaning up after one, though there are a few missions where John is introduced to the horse racing minigame. Despite John's great distaste for Dickens, he is surprisingly helpful. Mr. West Dickens introduces him to Seth and Irish, the next major characters. Along with Mr. Nigel West Dickens, the snake oil salesman, these two are also very easy to describe. Seth is a deranged treasure hunter and is implied to do, let's just say, weird stuff with the bodies. I believe it's implied he developed an affinity for them while grave robbing. Seth has previous gang ties to our boy Bill, and he will be critical to helping infiltrate the fort. Irish is a stereotypical drunk Irishman of the time. He drinks, slurs, curses, deceives, and seems to be widely disliked. He is the contact needed to get a mounted machine gun and ammo. But most of his missions are spent trying to track him down, get him out of trouble, or seizing the equipment he promised. Now that all the pieces are in place, John and the crew assault Fort Mercer. Seth and Dickens create a diversion for John to sneak himself and the Gatling gun into the fort, concealed within the cart usually reserved for hawking the snake oil salesman's elixirs. The good guys mow down all the bad guys, but find that Bill Williamson has recently fled to Mexico. Act 2. The Nuevo Paraiso region of the game is actually relatively short if you're using the fast travel mechanics, but can be a slog since every other mission takes you across the map and back. The region also appears to be very large, spanning the entire width of the map screen, and also featuring a lot of verticality in the level design. You are assisted over the Rio with the help of Irish, who grants you a shack and a new horse, if you are so inclined. Bill has grouped up for protection with another former brother-in-arms in the region, Javier Escuela. The Mexican border region is unstable at these times, with a corrupt army and an idealistic group of local rebels clashing for governance. The local people are obviously distrustful of a triggerman from the American government coming in and asking questions about the business of the local gang leaders. There are 3 groups John must assist in order to locate his targets: the local law, the Mexican army, and the Reyes rebels. Representing the locals are Landon Ricketts, a bit of a celebrity and living legend in the Red Dead universe, and Luisa Fortuna, a local woman whose family and community are caught up in the region's power struggle. Luisa is a lover and follower of Abraham Reyes, who leads Reyes Rebels, the major opposition group to the Mexican army. Landon Ricketts is an unofficial lawman to the town of Chuparosa. Being a legendary lawman John has heard tales of, Landon explains a bit about the country's problems and offers John some shooting lessons, allowing the player to manually paint targets while time is slowed down for a rapid succession of shots. After helping around the relatively peaceful town of Chuparosa, John is introduced to Luisa. Basically, all of Luisa's family has been killed or displaced by the conflict. John helps Luisa free her love, Abraham Reyes. Reyes is being held at a local fort and must be rescued from an imminent execution. After rescuing Reyes, he is reunited with his men so he may continue his crusade in the region. With limited options for finding Bill and Javier's hiding place, John attempts to get assistance from the Mexican government. Colonel Agustin Allende is the leader of the region's army. Before we can meet him, we must assist his captains and prove our loyalty to the cause. Captain Vicente de Santa is our main contact for this series of missions. The colonel and his captains are a ruthless and brutal group of men. Despite claiming to represent the last vestige of civility and law, they show no remorse in abusing women, killing civilians, and burning down entire communities. After assisting in some less than honorable actions on behalf of the Mexican army, John meets the colonel and is eventually led to believe that Bill and Javier have been captured and are being held for him in the Chuparosa church. This turns out to be a ruse, and John is held at gunpoint by De Santa, only to be personally saved by none other than Abraham Reyes and his rebels. John is now fully aligning himself with the rebels and assists them with a few of their own guerrilla military operations. Reyes' men eventually capture Captain De Santa. After being brutalized, De Santa discloses the location of Bill and Javier. The rebels then help John storm a stronghold so he may kill or capture Escuela, but Bill has already fled to Colonel Allende's villa. After slaughtering all the army defending the villa, John, Reyes, and the rest of the rebels storm the estate and pursue the two wanted men. Upon stopping their fleeing stagecoach, Allende holds Williamson at gunpoint and attempts to bargain for his freedom. John can either execute Allende or allow Reyes to do the deed. With Javier Escuela and Bill Williamson finally accounted for, it's time to travel north to Blackwater and report to the government. Act 3. John and the agents have a hostile exchange of words back at their field office in the police headquarters of Blackwater. But John ultimately gets his final target and gets a new gun for the collection out of the deal. The game's final boss is Dutch Vanderlinde, John's former gang leader and de facto adoptive father figure. Dutch has a large gang of men held up in a mountain fortress deep in the north. Our third act characters include a Native American tracker, a substance abusing racist Ivy League graduate, and our friends in the Bureau of Investigation. Completing a few errands and stopping a bank robbery led by Dutch, John and the lawmen eventually launch a large raid on Dutch's mountain compound. Eventually, John chases him down and corners him at the end of a cliffside cave. The two have a brief heart-to-heart before Dutch takes his fate into his own hands. John has completed the terms of the deal and is told his family has already been returned to their home. John rushes home to have a mostly loving reunion with his family. Uncle is there too. The rest of our missions as John are very reminiscent of our work for McFarlane Ranch. We keep the land clear of pests, break wild horses to sell for extra money, go hunting with John's son, buy some cattle, and take them to pasture. There are a good number of cute and heartwarming moments in the conclusion of the game, but you get the feeling that even John's family can't let him forget his past. We get a mission or two each with our family members around the farm to establish and strengthen their relationships. Unfortunately, despite how much John has tried to redeem himself, the law comes to claim John for being the last known living delinquent of the Vanderlinde gang. With the help of Uncle and Jack, the three are able to hold off somewhere between a platoon to a battalion's worth of mounted army men. Uncle unfortunately dies for the cause, but Jack and Abigail are able to escape. John sends his family off, but when he tries to leave, it's too late. The law has snuck up and surrounded him in the barn. John gets one last chance to use his Deadeye to take out as many agents as he can, but no matter what, John is cut down in a hail of bullets by Edgar Ross and his cronies. The player now takes control of the young Jack Marston, who returns home to find and bury his lost loved ones. We fade out on Jack and Abigail consoling each other, before fading back in on a more grown Jack, standing over his mother and father's graves. While this may be a symbolic end of the Old West, it is not the end of John's story of redemption. Epilogue. Now playing as Jack Marston, the player is offered the opportunity to run around the open world as they see fit. While there is one series of stranger missions to conclude John's story, this is also the time to clean up our various ambient challenges and trophies. I spent most of this time post-game doing everything I could to check off all the criteria for the various collectible outfits. 100% completion of the normal or hardcore game mode and 100% completion of the Undead Nightmare expansion pack are both required to obtain all the trophies for the game. The main game activities to be completed for the 100% and trophies are all story missions completed, all stranger missions completed, all jobs performed at least once per location offered, all outfits acquired, one of each animal slain, all safe houses acquired, each gang hideout completed at least once, several poker and dice challenges, all rare weapons acquired, all ambient and hunting challenges completed, all map locations revealed, a bounty claimed from all 20 possible bounty hideout locations, reach max fame while at max honor or minimum honor, and a series of miscellaneous trophy-related challenges ranging from winning 2,000 chips in a hand of poker to tying a woman to the train tracks. Since we are winding down on the last bits of story in RDR, I think this would be a good time to discuss some advice for other trophy hunters. Make sure you trigger the 4 major ambient challenges and try to progress them all somewhat together, as their progression is mostly tied to progressing through the major regions of the game, and there's some overlap you might be able to synergize on between the sharpshooter and hunting challenges. I was stressing for quite a bit of the epilogue due to never having skinned a coyote, thus not triggering the hunting challenges. Save getting the Mowing Them Down trophy for Undead Nightmare game mode, as there's a place you can farm the achievement. It's nearly impossible to get it naturally in the story mode. The poker challenges and related achievements are a grind. Use a nearby safe house bed as a save point, then you can feel free to really throw your weight around or bluff hard and go all in on even an above average hand. If you go broke, just reload your save, rinse and repeat. Notable stranger missions. I know you. One of the most discussed encounters is the repeating mission, where an unnamed man asks John pointed questions about our past and implies that Marston's quest for redemption may be a hollow gesture. In the final encounter, he is seen lurking around the edge of Beecher's Hope and provoking Marston. Marston unloads his firearm at the indignant man, before realizing the man may have been nothing but an apparition spawned by his own guilt. California. A man is attempting to cross the desert to California in order to complete a family dream of crossing from the Black Sea to the Pacific within 3 generations. Marston gives him some advice, but the man can be found fairly close to the last area the player found him. He seems worse for wear each time he and Marston meet. Eventually finding him dead, Marston recovers a letter the man wrote for his wife and drops it off at the post office. Love is the opiate. A Chinese immigrant named Joe laments his lost love and his indentured servitude. His foreman says he owes $10,000 or would take a suitable white Bronco for Joe's freedom. After trading a horse for the man's freedom, Joe can be found in the train station in Rosa a few days later. It is implied that he is high on opium and that his love has been given up on or was never a real person in the first place. Jack made his way through the remaining stranger encounters and most of the ambient and poker challenges before I eventually got bored with the repetitive tasks on my plate. It seemed time to do the final mission of the game. Remember My Family is the true ending of Red Dead Redemption. The quest begins in the town of Blackwater. Jack approaches a well-dressed man to ask if he works for the government and if he knows Edgar Ross. The man points Jack to Lake Don Julio, where the former director of the Bureau of Investigation has retired. Upon visiting the cabin, Miss Ross informs Jack that her husband is on a hunting trip with his brother. In Mexico, we find the brother's hunting camp. His brother tells us that Edgar Ross is by the nearby river hunting ducks. After finally tracking down the man responsible for his father's death, Jack and Agent Ross have the final showdown. Jack shoots Ross dead, and the credits roll. Before giving my conclusion, a look at a few characters in the story. Jack Marston ultimately got revenge for the death of his father, but did not honor his father's memory with his actions. While I essentially got to watch Jack grow from a child to a man between the two RDR games and understand why he became the man he did, I still find it incredibly unfortunate that he continued the cycle of violence that led to his family's struggles. This is not completely unexpected, as young Jack seems to enjoy reading books of valiant knights who fight dragons, going out hunting, and obviously grew up around some very hardened outlaws. While I could have just shut off the game after John was dead and buried and imagined Jack led a simple life as a homesteader and settled down, I knew there was more to do. Unfortunately for Jack, for me to acquire 100% game completion and all the trophies, I had to make Jack hunt down Edgar Ross. I had to make Jack bounty hunt in every state in the game. I had to make him rack up his own $5,000 bounty and kill innocents, bandits, and lawmen alike. Jack not learning from his father's mistakes was the intended experience of the game. Bonnie and Drew McFarlane are the idealized frontier family of Red Dead. Serving as John's saviors in the very beginning of the game, the family represents the pinnacle of what industrious and kind people can achieve in this period of history. Drew McFarlane is the patriarch and the owner of the ranch. Drew settled the land about 30 years before the events of the game and has seen his fair share of hardship to forge the homestead into what it is today. He is quoted as saying he has buried more children than he's raised due to a combination of violence and disease over the years. The farm is fully staffed, and while primarily a cattle farm, there's an abundance of other livestock and pets around the property. John even comments that he's never seen a ranch with its own general store before. All this is now mostly managed and to eventually be passed to Bonnie. Drew has the great quote, "Now, I don't know much about politics, but I know we're only as free as they say we are. Power is like a drink. The more you have, the more you want, and there's few men who can handle it." Bonnie is the 27-year-old daughter of a prominent rancher. She is unmarried, educated, and a kind-hearted proto-feminist. At one point, she takes a romantic interest in Marston, and this evolves into a solid friendship. Someday in the future, she expects to inherit and run the McFarlane Ranch, according to the Red Dead Redemption Game of the Year Edition guide. Bonnie has many quotes that would still hold up in debate today, such as when discussing matters of faith, she says, "We all have to look for answers somewhere. Some in big old books, others in big old bottles of whiskey." Or when discussing concern for her brother's well-being since he has moved to a fast-paced coastal city life, she says, "He switched his saddle for a tie, and that's fine. I just never met a man in a tie that I could trust." Dutch Vanderland. He is more or less the last boss of the story, but he's given very little backstory and screen time, much like the other big bads of the game. I'm unsure if Dutch had significant fleshed out backstory I am unaware of in the original RDR, however, RDR 2 gives us a wealth of context to understand John's former gang leader and father figure. The charismatic leader of the Vanderland gang, Dutch is radically opposed to government control. He values individual liberties above all else and dreams of living an independent existence, appropriating wealth from others and answering to no authority. He is reluctantly starting to realize that the way of life he holds dear is fast becoming an unrealistic proposition. Red Dead Redemption 2, the complete official guide. The leader of a sizable gang of outlaws and misfits, idealistic, anarchistic, charismatic, well-read, well-lived, but possibly starting to unravel under the pressure of the encroaching modern world. Rockstar Games' description of Dutch for Red Dead Redemption 2. The man makes some excellent points on the failings of so-called civilized society. Throughout the series, his philosophy, while short-sighted and hypocritical, does seem incredibly enticing when paired against the ruthless tactics and attitudes of the government agents pursuing him. Abraham Reyes and Luisa Fortuna. Using one last reference from the Red Dead Redemption Game of the Year guide, he is the 30-year-old son of a wealthy nobleman who has seemingly sided with the peasants and the rebels to drive out the regime that supports Allende and De Santa. He is very vain, and he does not seem to really care about the rights of the poor. However, Mr. Reyes does love to give speeches. I wanted to bring him up to note how while John sides with the rebels, and they are a better group to govern the region for the time being, Reyes is not really a good guy either. He seems quite misogynistic and does not really seem concerned for the rights of the people and more focused on personal goals. Despite Louisa claiming they are engaged and putting her life on the line for him multiple times, eventually resulting in her death, Abraham barely remembers her, and pretty sure he never even gets her name right. I believe he even declares Laura's Day, bungling his attempt to honor her memory. The freedom fighter Louisa Fortuna deserved better. He is also the person who kicks off the zombie apocalypse in the Undead Nightmare DLC. Undead Nightmare. Red Dead Redemption Undead Nightmare is a standalone expansion that reimagines the frontier as a zombie-infested nightmare. The DLC follows John Marston as he searches for a cure to a rapidly spreading undead plague threatening the West. Originally released on October 26, 2010 for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, it was later bundled with other DLC packs and re-released across multiple platforms. Over the years, Undead Nightmare has appeared on everything from modern consoles to PC and mobile, consistently launching alongside the main game. Upon reaching 100% main game completion and cleaning up miscellaneous achievements, I finished up the Undead Nightmare content fairly quickly. The game mode is a very fun use of the game mechanics, almost more so than the story missions. The game is also implied to be a dream John is having, so we get a little more analysis of John's psyche and some more character study on the side characters. Though it is of course not canon to the story and larger Red Dead universe. It also felt like less of a slog to reach 100%, likely due to the much shorter runtime. I would note that I saved the Mowing Them Down trophy for the expansion, as it requires you to kill 500 enemies using a mounted weapon. You would probably never achieve this under normal conditions. However, in El Presidio, you can use one of the defensive cannons and kill indefinitely spawning groups of 1 to 4 zombies. A little tedious, but I knocked it out in about 15 minutes. I completed everything and popped my Legend of the West Platinum Trophy right around the 100-hour mark. Also, after you beat the story, you can run around doing the side missions as an unintelligible zombie John Marston. And my final achievement for beating the game was taming a wild unicorn. Conclusion. Red Dead Redemption isn't just a game about revolutionaries, outlaws, and a fast-changing world. It is an examination of struggles in the American Southwest at the turn of the century. John's final stand is not heroic in the traditional sense. It is quite deliberate and deeply unfair. His death buys safety for his family, but not freedom from the legacy he leaves behind. Jack inherits a world that promised civilization, but delivers the same violence with cleaner uniforms and better weapons. When Jack kills Edgar Ross, the cycle does not close, it simply changes hands. It is a meditation on the idea that there may be no true redemption for any of us, but that does not make its pursuit any less worthwhile. Though we may never outrun our past, there is always the quiet struggle to improve oneself and the mutual benefits of caring for those who care for us. Red Dead Redemption's legacy is one of gunslingers and tropes from cowboy stories, but it is also one of philosophy.
We can't always fight nature, John. We can't fight change. Can't fight gravity. We can't fight nothing. My whole life, all I ever did was fight.
Then give up, Dutch.
But I can't give up, neither. I can't fight my own nature. That's a paradox, John.
Thank you so much if you made it this far. I really enjoy getting to take the time to reflect on this game I spent a lot of time with. If you think I missed anything critical to the story or have your own philosophical takes from the story, please reach out, leave a comment, and keep an eye out for my other projects. I've been on a kick trying to find games I enjoy getting all the trophies for, and writing all this out and getting the video clips really adds to it. Furthermore, I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.